531PI.
You're listening to Pacific Mornings on 531PI, 8 minutes past 8 o'clock. As always, we're joined by Pacific MP. Joining me this week is Labour MP Jenny Salesa. Maloelele, welcome in.
Talafalava Maloelele, and thank you for having me this morning, Will.
No, always appreciate these chats. Hey, look, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I just wanted to get perhaps a bit of a pulse check from yourself in the sense of the Green Party, and we're going to be talking to them after you, but the Green Party yesterday laid out its alternative budget. Now, put simply, they're pledging free GP visits, free childcare through new taxes and increased borrowing. Of course, it all comes just a week before the coalition government reveals its spending plans in next week's budget. What do you think of the Green Party pursuing such ideas such as free GP visits, free childcare?
All of us as political parties, we do our own policies and then we release them, right? Usually it's before we go campaigning, but the Green Party have released their budget, and I presume some of their policies, I have to admit, unfortunately I haven't read the details of what they've released, but all of the things that we have as policies, of course, is something that we should cost and actually pay for.
Indeed. In terms of just sticking with that point that you've made, is the Labour Party dropping an alternative budget?
Our leader has already given his pre-budget speech. I believe it was sometime yesterday. We are at the moment in the process of finalising what some of our policies would be. It takes several years to go through our policy process, and so we will be releasing some of our policies, once we finalise it. Once it goes through, every LEC or local electorate committee has a chance to put through what they think from their local community, including mine, for instance, in South Auckland. What are the most important issues that we're hearing from people on the ground? It goes through various regional conferences, and then it gets finally confirmed at the overall annual conference. And so the policy process actually takes many months, and for some of our policies, at least a couple of years to finalise.
Wow, actually good to get a bit of insight into how that process works. Thank you for that. Just finally, before we get into talking about truancy, we were also talking about a new UNICEF report which ranked New Zealand 4th lowest out of 36 OECD and EU countries for overall child well-being, with the country placing last for youth mental health and recording the highest youth suicide rate. With all that in mind, UNICEF said that's why we need a progressive budget. Now, it's already been outlined from Nicola Willis that this will not be a progressive budget. And is that a great shame, do you think, that next week's budget, organisations already know and feel that they're just not going to get the support they need to improve outcomes for Kiwis?
I absolutely agree that we need a progressive budget. One of the things that we in the opposition had been wondering was how is this current government, national-led government, going to fund everything that they would like to? And, it really shocked all of us in the opposition. We did not expect that they will find that money from making sure that working women actually pay for it. We know because, when we were in government, we put aside money for pay equity. It was to the tune of several billions. And we know now that that is some of the money that this current government is going to fund various initiatives with. And we do not believe that that is the right thing to do. We have a proud history in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We were the first in the world to give women the right to vote. We have been fighting over several decades to get to pay equity. If I can just say, there's equal pay and then there's pay equity. Equal pay is when you get paid the same amount for the same work, regardless of your gender. We as parliamentarians, as members of parliament, when we come in as backbench MPs, we do not have to fight for equal pay because we get it, regardless of whether you're a man or woman, regardless of your gender, you get the exact same pay. Different pay rate, of course, for those who are in government and ministers, but pay equity is when you get the same pay for different work with the same or similar level of skills, responsibilities and effort. Now, this is the law that has been changed by the government last week. It makes it so much harder for women to actually argue that they should get to pay equity. And when the government says that this is not a pay cut, we in the opposition say it is a pay cut, because when we were in government, we put aside billions for the settlement of pay equity. These are the very billions that this current government has actually used to balance the budget. And we say it is wrong. It is wrong to make especially Pacific Māori ethnic and lower paid women, but it includes, of course, nurses, teachers, and other organisations where the majority of the workers are women. Makes it so much harder. And for some of them, including our secondary school teachers, they cannot even get to the bargaining start line, because you have to have 70% of your workforce to be able to even lodge a pay equity claim. Secondary school teachers, it's only 63 or so percent. So they cannot actually lodge another pay equity claim. So we are very, very disappointed and very hurt by what this current government has done.
Let's turn our attention to the Truancy pre-budget announcement that was made by our dear Associate Education Minister David Seymour. Now, to bring our audience up to speed in case they've missed it, the government's allocating $140 million to tackle truancy with a new school attendance service. I'll be honest, it's hard to argue against investment like this. This to me sounds good.
We actually, surprisingly, we actually support initiatives by the government to improve school attendance. It is a step in the right direction. Now, one of the things that we did not agree with at the time when it happened was disbanding the previous truancy services, which was way back in 2012. We believe that that was the wrong call. The government should have left that in place. But in terms of this initiative to address school attendance, we agree with it. We support it.
Okay. Look, and you know, it's a bit of the blame game in action. The current government blames the last government for dropping the ball when it comes to truancy. What do you have to say about that? I mean, I fully concede that during the time of Ardern and to an extent Hipkins, or perhaps it fizzed out by that point, there was the COVID pandemic, so inevitable truancy was to be. But how much of the blame sits with the Labour government?
Well, you know, governments come and go, right? But in terms of school attendance, it is something that we should, regardless of who is in government, actually address. Now, there is a wider discussion about the factors that lead to truancy. As you said, COVID was a factor, but there are also things like poverty, poor health, and other family circumstances. In addition to these changes, we also should put preventative measures in place to ensure that our children actually want to attend school. And I've got to say, this Associate Minister of Education, who is responsible for school attendance and therefore addressing truancy, is the Honourable David Seymour. He's also the Associate Minister who's responsible for school lunches. One of the things he could do is to ensure that school lunches are healthy, nutritious, and hopefully not one that explodes and hurts our children when they attend school. The other thing he could do as Associate Minister of Education to encourage students to attend school is to ensure that the school bus routes are actually functioning well in order to transport our students to and from school, especially in the rural areas.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Okay, with all that in mind then, look, have you got any perhaps final comments? Oh, actually, let's switch tack and talk FamilyBoost spend. Now, there's been a bit of a fudging there. I'm not sure if you've been up to speed with what's been going on with FamilyBoost, but personally, I mean, what's your opinion first on the FamilyBoost situation?
Well, National, when they were campaigning before they got into government, they promised that Boost would assist up to over 130,000, I think, up to 130,000 families. Now we know, because our shadow minister of spokesperson, Honourable Barbara Edmonds, has been asking the questions and she got the information. We know that only 62 million so far of the FamilyBoost money has been utilised. But we also know that a quarter of that money, 14 million, has actually been used for administration of the FamilyBoost scheme. Now, to go back to the the numbers of families that were supposed to benefit from this scheme. We also know from the questioning from Honourable Barbara Edmonds that just over 200 families have actually been able to get the benefit of the full scheme. So falling so far short of that over 100,000 families. And so during the time of cost of living crisis at the moment, it is actually not good enough to have the national-led government promise such a huge assistance to our low to middle income families and only 200 or so families be able to access the scheme in full.
Yeah, it's not great. Look, with that in mind, let's switch tack now to perhaps another story, and that is around again another situation where it's not great. The recruitment numbers are an absolute flop when it comes to police. I mean, you did not need to be Sherlock or be a police constable to figure this one out.
Yes, so the government actually made a promise that by November of this year, November 2025, that they would have recruited 500 new additional police to the police force. And we know that that number is nowhere close to 500. We also know from waste water testing that the level of especially meth use in our wastewater has gone up by 96% over the time that this new government has come in. So we absolutely need more police. It is fantastic to be able to get new police on the beat to ensure that our people are safe. And we actually wish that this government was able to have the 500 police. It is in all of our interest to have the 500 police that were promised, but unfortunately, this Minister of Police has not delivered on this particular promise. We wish him well, but it does not look like that's going to happen, not by November of this year.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, look, before we wrap it up, any final thoughts? How are things in your neck of the woods, in your electorate?
You know, families are really suffering. And one of the things that's actually coming through to my office and to me personally is just a lot of women who, as you know, are voiceless. We're talking about our cleaners, our aged care workers, our nurses, our teachers, our high school teachers in particular, who were looking forward to a pay equity settlement, which would have meant for some of these families, if we were to look at a family pay packet, up to $150 a week when and if that settlement was to actually be concluded. That is a lot of money that now a lot of, these 33 claims that have been cancelled. In terms of the overall numbers, when the Workplace Relations Minister was asked 2 days ago, the Honourable Brooke Van Velden, how many people, which are mostly women, are we talking about? She told us in the House 180,000 people, and the majority of those are women. And so that is a lot of people whose pay is not going to increase. So it's not just about stopping the pay claims now. They are all told, these 33, that they have to go and start at the beginning. Some of them took 3 to 4 years to get to this stage. But as I said earlier on, some of these folks are just not able to lodge a pay claim at all because they don't make up to 70%. This is actually really, really not on. It is so actually disgusting how it comes to mind. And what I actually find quite hurtful is there are women ministers who are leading this, taking back the rights of working women by decades and decades.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, just before I let you go, I mean, again, just want to get your sense, now that you have mentioned what you're hearing from your electorate, a record 70,000 Kiwis left in March this year, two-thirds headed to Australia. I've heard among, my Pacifica family, many of them want to head over there. Some of them have already made the start of heading over to Australia. Do you think it's sad that we're losing, more and more Kiwis to Australia?
Absolutely, because what we're losing is not just the families, we're losing our skilled workers. It takes several years. If we're to look at, say, building and construction, when we came in to government in 2017, we knew because MB did us a report, we were told we're short by 50,000 people in the building and construction sector. These are electricians, plumbers, tradies, builders. And so, one of the reasons why we actually had that scheme of apprenticeships was actually, if you're to learn, want to actually go into a polytechnic to become a tradie, you would get fees free for 2 years, not just 1 year. 1 year fees free if you go to university, but 2 years fees free if you actually go to a polytechnic and learnt the trade. And over the 6 years that Labor was in government, there was well over 100,000 people that went through that scheme, got trained to become skilled so that we ourselves could build up our own country. A lot of these people were Pacific and Māori. Now, that is actually also what I find really sad because we've trained them over a number of years. When you look at the building and construction sector, there's over 13,000 people that have lost their jobs. Quite a number of building construction owners have gone bankrupt. And so when they employed a lot of Māori and Pacific workers, they then lose their jobs. And I do not blame them for looking for a job somewhere else, but I do feel really sad having gone through the fact that we needed to train our own people to build up our own country, to lose them to Australia or to other countries. And it's also the question of will they come back? Because, of course, the building and construction sector will ramp up again, but will the Pacific, Māori, and New Zealanders that have been trained over the past few years, will our skilled people come back to help rebuild up our country? I don't know the answer to that.
Indeed. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. That is Labor MP Jenny Salesa. You have a good rest of your day and a good weekend when you get to it, eh?
And you too. Thank you, Will.